Hey, this is Tom Gresham of Gun Talk, and it seems that at least a few of you enjoyed that first experiment I did, reading a chapter out of my dad's book, Grits on Guns. Of course, my dad being Grits Gresham. He was the shooting editor for Sports Afield magazine for, I think, 27 years. Wrote for pretty much all the gun magazines and most of the outdoor magazines, hunting and fishing and guns and camping and a lot of other things. But the book Grits on Guns is a compilation that I put together for him, a long time ago now. And it's kind of a collection of mostly articles he wrote for, or his columns really, he wrote for Sports Afield magazine when he was a shooting editor. So they're pretty interesting in terms of just looking back at what people were talking about, what they were saying, and the take of a gun writer who honestly was more of a hunter. Dad was not a competitive shooter, although he did shoot trap competitively for a few years. Mostly his interest was in hunting. And so you look at this, from that perspective. So I thought I'd pick out one that is fairly interesting right now because so much of it is absolutely true. And so much of it really are things that we're talking about today. Now, this one is from 1977. We're talking 37 years ago. And the subject was bullets. And you've actually heard me talk a good bit about bullets because that's really the critical part. That's the part that you send down range. So if you're hunting, you want a good bullet. If it's self-defense, you certainly want a good bullet. Pretty much the only thing that really has changed since Dad wrote this in 1977 is that we have so many more choices today, more good bullets from people who make bullets just for hand loading, and to a great extent, good bullets that are available in loaded ammunition. Well, what's happened is hunters have figured it out. They know that a good bullet makes all the difference. So much so that you can actually use a smaller caliber to achieve the same thing you would have with a bigger caliber, maybe 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago. You can drop down to a 25 from a 270. You can shoot a 270 where you might have shot a 30 caliber before. You can shoot a standard caliber, 270, 280, 30-06 instead of shooting a 300 Magnum. When you're using good bullets, they hold together. All right, straight out of Sports Afield and out of the book, Grits on Guns, which, have to mention, is available at shopguntalk.com. Here's Grits Gresham. The title of the column was Bullets Do the Work. Countless books and magazine articles have been written during the past few decades by gun writers such as this one on the respective merits of various calibers and rifles. A glance up from my desk brings into focus a bookshelf lined with imposing titles, most of them written by friends of mine who have my respect and admiration for the shooting and hunting knowledge they possess. It has recently been brought to my attention that we may not be adequately emphasizing one of the most important aspects of the rifle caliber ammunition combination when it comes to big game hunting. That point is simply that it's what's up front that ultimately counts. It's the bullet itself, in short, which does or does not perform satisfactorily on a particular animal when the final act is played. For the purpose of this exercise, we will assume that you and I have selected a caliber and a rifle which is appropriate and adequate for the game in question. We have sighted the rifle in properly, and when the magic moment arrives, we have touched it off with finesse. The bullet speeds to the target and makes contact at the chosen aiming point. Result? A quick, clean kill. Not always. Not if the construction of the bullet itself is inadequate or improper for the task assigned it. How should a bullet be put together? There is no one answer, and the problem is a complex one for the engineers who must cope with it. Not only must they take into consideration the size, anatomy, and construction of the game species on which the bullet will be used, but they must attempt to coordinate the manufacturing specifications of the projectile with the velocities to which it will be subjected. It isn't easy. How can you design a bullet to perform perfectly at a range of 50 yards when velocity is 3,000 feet per second and still have it perform perfectly out at 350 yards when the speed has dropped substantially? perform perfectly on a lung area shot on a thin-skinned whitetail, and also on a shot through the shoulder blade of a big, tough bull elk. Unless a bullet is built for a very specific use, it is obvious that its manufacturing specifications must be a compromise. That is exactly what most factory-loaded bullets are. That isn't all bad. In most situations, the commercially available loadings do an admirable job, but not always. One of the most interesting experiences I've had in hunting I owe to a factory-loaded bullet which didn't get the job done. It went to pieces, the jacket separating from the core and the core breaking up on its way into the chest cavity of a lion. A second bullet entering from the opposite side did the same thing. One or both of them might eventually have been fatal. They were not immediately so, however, and the big male got into dense vegetation. When we finally caught up with him sometime later, he decided to eliminate the source of his difficulties, me. He managed to approach within 13 paces very rapidly before we were able to end the argument. Less exciting, but even more intriguing, was the performance of a 220-grain custom soft-point bullet loaded to factory velocity in a .300 Winchester Magnum caliber. With it, I shot a warthog, which might have weighed 50 pounds, a quartering shot, which entered just forward of the hip on a line into the chest cavity. It literally blew up on entrance, tearing a huge, jagged entrance hole. The bullet core was recovered from the hip and the jacket from the stomach. The most common failure in bullet performance involves the separation of the lead core from the bullet jacket. When that happens, the whole package may not penetrate into the vital areas of the anatomy. Manufacturers of all bullets, including those used in factory ammo, strive to avoid that separation problem. For most big game hunting, the ideal is for the forward portion of the bullet to mushroom while the base remains stable, and the whole affair should hold together. Various methods are utilized to achieve that. The best-known custom big game bullet had its origin 30 years ago when a hunter named John Nosler became dissatisfied with bullets then available. The Nosler partition bullet was the result, and it has achieved a sound reputation among hunters around the world for good performance on heavy, tough, big game. The partition is, as the name indicates, a two-part bullet. There's a front core and a rear core, the two separated by a partition, which is part of the jacket. The front portion mushrooms back to the partition. Quote, "You can immediately spot a Nosler when you cut one out of an animal," close quote, an African professional hunter told me. They all look just alike. Perfect performance. Such complicated construction comes at a price, usually several times that of standard bullets. Many hunters consider them a bargain at any cost. Reaching for a broader market, however, Nosler marketed a new bullet, which he called the solid base, which is competitive in price with other bullets. Produced by the extrusion process, the base is quite thick, and the thickness of the jacket tapers toward the nose. Other custom bullets which have excellent reputations with reloaders on heavy big game animals are the Bitterroot, Barnes, Hornady, and Spear's Grand Slam. The Swift is a superb custom bullet, available at this time only in .375 caliber. Perfect performance may be one thing to one hunter and quite something else to another. Some prefer their bullets to upset upon contact to the point that they do not exit the animal, the point being that they expend all of their energy on and in it. Others prefer the bullet construction and velocity to be such that it will go completely through most of the time, with the thought that such performance will give a better blood trail for tracking if that proves necessary. You pay your money and you make your choice. One class of bullets is designed not to mushroom, of course, and that's the solid. Noted primarily for use on game such as elephant and Cape buffalo, they are also useful on smaller quarry, where a mushrooming bullet would be too destructive of meat or hide. Turkey, foxes, and coyotes come to mind. Take an interest in the performance of your bullets on the animals you shoot from now on, if you haven't done so before. Become a bullet digger. By retrieving those bullets, or the pieces of them, You could well find the key to future success. Published December 1977. It's kind of interesting to hear the names of those bullets, Barnes, Hornady, others, that were available really only to hand loaders back then, and now, of course, are available in factory ammo, because the factories figured out that's what we wanted, and we figured it out because they simply worked better. So we tried to get hand-loaded bullets, hand-loaded ammunition, using these really good bullets. As I remember, Federal may have been the first ammo company to load custom bullets or hand-loader bullets in their Federal Premium line. They loaded the Sierra bullets in there, and then right after that loaded the Noslers. And then, of course, many companies followed. And now, of course, Nosler makes its own ammo using its bullets. Barnes bullets, of course, are available for hand loading, but they're also available in lots of ammo, like Double Tap and I think probably Federal Premium, but also available directly from Barnes in their Vortex ammo. So that's a big change also. And yes, just as in 1977, they cost more. A box of just standard, maybe Remington Corlocks is not terribly expensive. You may pay 2, 3, even 4 times as much for ammo from Nosler or from Barnes or from somebody that uses these custom bullets. I guess the question is, if you're going to buy 20 or 40 rounds of ammo, and you're going to pay an extra $50 or $100 for them, and you're going to go on this trip of a lifetime for elk or moose or bear or whatever, can you really find that $50 or $100 in the cost of the travel and the hunt and the guide and everything else? And when it all comes down to it, and it's the very last day, and you're going home tomorrow, and it's the very last hour, and it's the very last 5 minutes, and that big bull walks out, and he's standing on the ridge, and now he's quartering away from you, and it's the only shot you're going to have, and you've got to take the shot, slip it in right in front of that rear ham, slide it in, it's got to penetrate a long way. How much would you pay to have a bullet that will do the job for you? Ultimately, that's why we like good bullets, and that's what Grits was talking about almost 40 years ago.